enough money. I got enough money. It ain't about the money. I want to be in those rooms, in those championship conversation rooms. Kelsey Mitchell been in the league long enough. She's a superstar player, finished fourth in MVP voting. She's a phenomenal basketball player. She deserves a ring. Now, we know if there's one team that could possibly finesse getting a ring, see, this is how the Indiana Fever free agency is. This is the pinnacle right now because Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston is still.
Mitchell may very well look at the bigger picture and decide that a championship matters more than chasing top dollar elsewhere. She is aware that a Supermax offer is waiting for her somewhere across the league. But she also knows what she has spent the better part of a decade building in Indiana. The argument could easily be made that she has already secured financial stability, and at this point in her career, what she is really chasing is a ring. She finished fourth in MVP voting. She is an elite player.
Because Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston is still on rookie contracts. Now, the rookie contracts have been altered due to the current CBA, but it's just enough room to get just enough what you need to get possibly a championship run. Teams like the New York Liberty, teams like the Las Vegas Aces, they don't have that same leverage. They don't have that same cushion that the Indiana Fever got. We all got to remember that. See,
she deserves to be in championship conversations. Here is where the Indiana Fever's situation becomes genuinely unique in the entire league. Both Caitlin Clark and Aaliyah Boston are still locked into rookie-scale contracts. The updated CBA shifted those numbers slightly upward, but both players remain significantly below what their market value would otherwise be. That gap is everything.
Same cushion that the Indiana Fever got. We all got to remember that. See, Kelsey Mitchell could do a LeBron moment. She could opt to take a pay cut. Yes, if Kelsey Mitchell decides to take a pay cut, that changes everything. Or Kelsey Mitchell could say, you know what? I want my money. And guess what? I don't believe the Fever is going to give her a supermax, judging off the situation they're in.
It is the kind of salary cap breathing room that franchises like the New York Liberty and Las Vegas Aces simply do not have. Those teams are paying their stars full rate. The Fever are not, and that difference could be the deciding factor in whether Indiana makes a legitimate championship run. Mitchell essentially has two roads in front of her. She can accept a reduced salary, stay in Indiana, and chase a title while the window is open.
A supermax, judging off the situation they're in. Made a video earlier today talking about Lynn Dunn, speaking about how the CBA kind of messed up their salary cap. See, the Fever is in the best position more than any other team in the entire league to win a championship this year simply because they have a salary cap gap. The gap being that they have two supermax players that.
Or she can walk, collect the supermax money she deserves, and likely land somewhere that does not have the same championship infrastructure the Fever currently possess. The interesting part is that Indiana wins either way. If she stays on a team-friendly deal, the roster gets stronger. If she walks, the cap space that opens up can be redirected. No matter which direction this goes, the Fever organization comes out ahead.
Supermax players that ain't making supermax money. One being the best WNBA basketball player in the world, Caitlin Clark. Kelsey Mitchell could stay for less money and win a chip, or leave, go get your money, and possibly not win a championship. But either way it goes, it's only one person that wins in this argument, whether she stays.
Mitchell has gone quiet on social media. Her last post on X came back in January, over 2 months before these reports started circulating. That post referenced something worth paying attention to. She wrote about recognizing people who operate out of greed, noting there is no ceiling on what those individuals will do to get ahead. That framing, coming from her directly, suggests she is not purely motivated by the biggest contract available.
But either way it goes, it's only one person that wins in this argument, whether she stays, whether she goes, and guess who that is? The only person that wins in this entire situation is the Indiana Fever basketball team. The Indiana Fever is good whether Kelsey leave, whether Kelsey goes, because they have that gap. Now, Kelsey Mitchell hasn't said anything online. She's been pretty quiet. Let's head on over to X. Look and see what the streets is saying. So this is Kelsey Mitchell.
That post read like someone who had already made peace with a decision that was not about money. Now, reports are pushing the opposite narrative that she is likely to leave. But her own words from 60 days prior point somewhere different. The demoralizing finish to the 2024 season also factors into this. When Sydney Colson tore her ACL and the team got eliminated in gut-wrenching fashion, the entire locker room broke down.
Let's head on over to X. Look and see what the streets is saying. So this is Kelsey Mitchell X account. She ain't said nothing since January. We're in March. It's over 2 months. God covered me in recognizing those who move off grid. Off greed means there is no limit to what they'll do to be next up. This was in January she posted this. This is why I'm telling y'all. This is very important because she stated.
Players, coaches, everyone. Mitchell described how the weight of losing Colson to injury, followed by the playoff loss, sent an emotional wave through the group that fundamentally changed who they were as a team and as individuals. That kind of shared pain builds loyalty that is hard to walk away from. Her numbers last season were not the issue either. She averaged 19 points per game, shot 58% from the field, and was one of the more consistent offensive weapons on the roster.
This is very important because she stated those who move off greed. Kelsey Mitchell know she's going to get a Supermax contract. Just probably not for the Fever. But if Kelsey Mitchell want to win a ring, she going to have to stay with the Fever and take a pay cut. And judging off this post she said in January, this is telling me that she's probably finna stay.
A player performing at that level does not just disappear from a team's plans without reason. The gut feeling here is that Mitchell stays. The January post, the playoff heartbreak, the championship window that may never be this wide again, all of it points toward her returning. If Caitlin Clark is ever going to win a WNBA title, the realistic window based on current CBA structures is now. That urgency applies to Mitchell just as much.
If nothing else, you should give the players more of a sense of their input on officiating is being heard. So basically, if you guys don't know, like obviously there are points of emphasis videos where they're like, yes, let them beat the shit out of the other person. Yes, let player X beat the shit out of player Y. But basically what ends up happening in these scenarios is there's always these point of emphasis things. Like there are always things for points of emphasis, and no matter what, there are.
And if she understands that which her own words suggest she does, then the money was never really the deciding factor. One of the more quietly significant pieces buried inside the new WNBA CBA relates to officiating transparency. While the agreement stops short of introducing any kind of formal officiating review system, it does establish that the Players' Union will now be granted access to the instructional and educational videos used to guide referees, the so-called points of emphasis materials, and it mandates 3 scheduled meetings every season between the league and the union dedicated specifically to going over flagrant foul calls and technical fouls. At the very minimum, it gives players a genuine sense that their concerns around officiating are actually being taken into account. Points of emphasis are essentially the league's way of steering how games get called.
No matter what, there are certain things referees emphasize. Like, for example, if... I'm just trying to think off the top of my head. It's like, let's just say they want to stop the contact. So it's like, okay, we want the game to be more free-flowing. So what we're going to do is we're going to stop hand checking. So if you see a hand check in the full court, we're not going to call it. Like, that's not going to be a call if it's a full court hand check. Or it's like, you know what, we want this game to be more physical.
The office puts out guidance telling referees what to prioritize, whether that's letting the game breathe and cutting down on minor contact calls, or allowing more physical play in certain areas of the floor. One week, the directive might be to stop hand-checking in the open court. Another stretch might call for letting post players bang without whistles. This is where a lot of the frustration in professional basketball originates, because most of the time the referees are simply executing what they've been told. The calls that frustrate fans and players most often aren't the result of incompetent officiating, they're the result of the league pushing the game in a particular direction and the referees following that lead.
Or more physical down low. So we're going to allow physicality down low, we're going to not allow physicality. And that's one of the things people don't understand with referees, is that a lot of the time the referees are just doing what they're told. Like, there's a lot of times where it's not actually bad referees, it's bad direction that the league wants to go in. Like, the league does control the amount of physicality that the referees allow. Like, in a pro sports league, the league has control of that. In a random...
This dynamic plays out at every level of the sport. Even at the amateur and semi-professional level, referees often find themselves in an uncomfortable position, aware that certain calls are being left uncalled, not because the rules have changed, but because the guidance they've received has shifted. The late whistle is a useful example. In theory, it exists to maintain flow if minor contact occurs, but the play finishes cleanly, the whistle stays in the pocket. In practice, when that principle is applied too broadly or inconsistently, it creates situations where significant contact goes unaddressed and players suffer for it.
A pro sports league, the league has control of that. In a random amateur leagues, like, they don't have, like, there's no ability to do that because, again, you can try. Like, I know, obviously, when you're playing, like, in Ireland, like, you know that from talking to refs, where it's like, I'm someone who has been at some referee meetings, has played in the top league, played in the second tier in Ireland, has coached, haven't coached in top league in Ireland, but has coached.
In the WNBA specifically, the issue has been the league's apparent belief that allowing a rough, physical brand of basketball serves as a draw for the product. The problem is, there's a meaningful distinction between genuine toughness and outright dangerous play. Allowing a player to throw elbows into opponents' faces isn't physicality in any sporting sense, it's a failure of the officiating framework to protect players on the floor. When the direction coming down from the league blurs that line, referees end up in an impossible spot. Now that players have access to those instructional videos, the situation changes.
In Ireland, but as coach at the second tier, currently coach at the collegiate level in Ireland, and it's like, you're talking to refs, and like, it's at the stage where some of the good refs are genuinely, like, almost apologizing. And they're like almost apologizing. And they're like, look, this is how we're being told to ref this game. And it's like the late whistle. You saw it in the FIBA games. So there's a thing in FIBA where it's a lot of late whistle. You saw a lot of it in the World Cup qualifiers. And it is...
If a points of emphasis video is essentially telling referees to ignore a certain category of foul, the union can see that. The ability to pull back the curtain on what officiating guidance actually looks like eliminates the possibility of the league quietly steering calls in one direction while publicly claiming otherwise. Players will be able to cross-reference what they're experiencing on the court with what referees are being told to do. That level of visibility creates real accountability not just for the referees, but for the people handing down the directives in the first place. It also, somewhat counterintuitively, benefits the referees themselves.
You saw a lot of it in the World Cup qualifiers. And it is, like, it's one of those things where, like, it infuriates players and coaches, because it's like, in Ireland, it's really bad, because what ends up happening is that, like, a lot of good refs, rarely this happens, but it's like, a player will get hacked. The late whistle is meant to be like, say if there's like a tiny bit of contact and the ball still goes in, it's not an and one, they just leave it. Just to improve the flow of the game.
When players can actually see the instructions officials are working from, the frustration shifts away from the individual referee and toward the system producing those instructions. A player who watches a call go against them and then watches a video confirming the league told referees to make exactly that call has a much clearer target for their grievance. The referee becomes less of a villain and more of a person doing a job within a structure they didn't design. The technical foul situation is a separate matter that the new structure might also help address. There's a noticeable inconsistency in how technicals get handed out in the league.
Just to improve the flow of the game. Whereas in Ireland, people are getting their heads taken off. Coaches will stand up and complain, or a bench will get up and complain, and then the ref will call the foul, will then tee up the bench and then go, yeah, it actually was a foul. And you're like, what? You have just seen somebody get their head taken off. I've genuinely seen a ref late whistle an unsportsmanlike foul and tee up a coach from it. It's like, that's the horrendous thing that happens here. But that is a directional thing towards refs, where it's like, it can be one of the most...
A player can visibly and repeatedly pursue a referee across the court, gesturing and demanding explanations, and receive no penalty. That same player can then react mildly to a call on a different night and collect a technical immediately. The inconsistency isn't necessarily malicious, it reflects the broader problem of unclear and unevenly applied standards. With formal review meetings now built into the calendar, there's at least a process through which these patterns can be raised, examined, and ideally corrected over time. The 3 mandated review sessions each season are modest in scope, but meaningful in principle.
That is a directional thing towards refs, where it's like, it can be one of the most frustrating things ever, but they want to improve the flow of the game. Whereas in the WNBA, they're allowing people to get mauled because they believe that the physicality is a selling point when it's not. And it's not even the physicality. They believe Alyssa Thomas going around elbowing people in the face is a selling point. There's a big difference again between physicality and that crap. We got to be real here. There's a big difference between physicality and Alyssa Thomas going around elbowing people. But that being said, you just never know.